Okay, welcome back to Learn Energy Healing. With this video, we're going to talk about setting up a healing room. There's a lot of different things you can talk about, but I'm going to go over some of the main points of setting up a healing room. So some very obvious things to talk about. The first is making sure your room is clean and tidy. Can't emphasize that enough because you want it to be nice and welcoming. You don't want anyone tripping over things. You don't want anything that might be getting in the way in any way. And of course, clean, because there are a lot of people with allergies. You're obviously not going to help them if there's any dust or any chemicals or anything that they might be breathing in the room. And there are a lot of people who would judge you for having something not very clean or set up in the way they expect. So clean and tidy, obviously. And when I say clean, there are a lot of people out there still that use, shake and vac, that stuff you put on the carpet before you vacuum up. And they sort of put really smelly candles in the room. Or they use cleaning products that have a strong odor. Again, these are all things that people can react to or just not like. They just don't like it, don't feel comfortable when they smell certain things. So be aware of smelly candles and things in cleaning products that have a strong odor. A lot of people do have reactions these days. More people aren't so healthy anymore. There's a lot more people with allergies to things. So very obvious, but often forgotten to make sure you think about how the room smells, what chemicals are in the room. Obviously avoid things like Glade plugins, those things you plug into the sockets on the walls that put vapor out into the air. Pretty toxic. If you are going to go for some sort of smell, then maybe an essential oil, making sure it's nice and pure, might be good. But again, some people might not like that. So personally, I prefer not to use any smellies at all and just have it smelling as little as possible in case of the person coming in. And of course, you can always check with people. Same goes with those joss sticks, the sticks that you burn to have incense in the room. Some people really don't like that. I know it's a spiritual new age thing that's sometimes expected, but it's not nice for everyone. So yes, clean and tidy. Selecting a room as well is quite important. As you can see here, I don't have a separate healing room. We don't have the space. So using this living area when I can is the only option I have for receiving people. So making sure that whatever is in the room is welcoming, even though it is a living room with sofas in and a TV in the corner, which never gets used, by the way. So bear that in mind. You might want to remove some things from the room and bring some other things in to make it feel more like a healing area. If you do have a separate room, great. And if you're not working with other people much, then maybe just having a healing corner, just for working on your friends and family, rather than if you were going to do a healing like me. Positioning of the couch. We can talk about massage tables another time, what might be useful, what you might like to pick. But obviously pick one that's comfortable for you, that you can reach easily over and do your work comfortably with. So I won't go too much into that. Today I've positioned it here just so you can see it on the camera, because if I put it where I normally would, over there where there's more space, so I can get around the table and work from any angle, you wouldn't be able to see me and the table, unfortunately, with this camera. So that's why I'm quite close to the sofas here. So yeah, positioning is quite good to think about. Obviously, you don't want to be near too many electronics. You don't want to be anything that's giving out radiation. Some people are very sensitive to beams. So if you have a beam or a line of light, probably best not to put it above the healing table, because some people can feel that. So you might want lights to the side, You might want them to be not a very high brightness, because that can be overwhelming for some people. Some people are quite sensitive, especially in a healing environment. So be aware of where you place the lights and what they are. Obviously, if you've read my blog all about different forms of radiation and blue light, you want to factor in bulbs that don't give off too much blue light. That's very stimulating. An incandescent bulb, the old bulbs in other words, much better. But at least pick a bulb that doesn't flash, because a lot of these modern bulbs do actually flash, and even though we can't necessarily see it fully, the brain picks it up and it can be quite interfering. So lighting is quite important, as is position of windows. So I've had to close the curtains behind me, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see me. The camera would just blank everything out. But yeah, positioning yourself so the light comes in at a nice angle, and again, ideally not in the face of the person you're working on. So positioning of everything, quite important. Another interesting thing, so another thing I've put on my blog in the past is where you are in relation to north, south, east and west. Sometimes you can't get in the most ideal position, but we know the north is like the positively charged part of the Earth, and the South Pole is the negatively charged part of the Earth. So ideally you don't want the positively charged part of the body, the head, to the north. It's a bit like putting two positive ends of a magnet together. They don't want to go together. So you might want to think of positioning the head more towards the south, magnetic south, rather than true south. And then in terms of east and west, the sun rises in the east, passes over the planet, and sets in the west. So energy is moving east to west. So if your head is to the west and your feet are to the east, then that means the energy is coming up your legs and into your head. It may not be so much of a problem with healing, but certainly that can affect sleep, because it sometimes means energy gets stuck in the head. So direction can be very much an important thing for those reasons. Same with electronics. If there's electromagnetics coming off a TV screen, or even worse, something like a smart meter, you don't want to be too close to that. You want to be as far away as you can, maybe buy special paint to make sure the radiation doesn't come through the wall, that kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about with electromagnetics and technology, Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. Again, I've written about different things you can do for that on my blog, my written blog on my website. And yes, I have a video on it as well, don't I, about certain things you can use. Things like the GeoCleanse plug to harmonize the electric circuit, and different crystals you can use, that kind of thing. Huge subject, which goes beyond today, of course, but please do check out those other videos and blog articles for different things you could do to harmonize EMFs, because it is becoming an increasing problem in the modern world. Okay, so we've talked about light, positioning, cleanliness, selecting lots of different blankets. So obviously make sure they're nice and clean. If you've bought them new, the same with clothing, I do recommend you wash clothing and blankets before you use them after buying them, because they have a lot of chemicals in these days, nasty chemicals, fire retardants, all sorts of excuses to put chemicals in materials, and make sure you wash them before you use them. And even though massage tables like that are nice and cushioned, it's always nice, I feel, to put a blanket on top of the massage table. It just makes it a bit more comfortable for people. And then, of course, because a lot of people do get quite cold, sometimes people get hot, sometimes people get cold. Depends on how the energy moves, how easily it moves, what is released, how the energy is moving after a healing. So sometimes people can get quite cold, or they can get quite hot. So it's always good to have extra blankets in the room to make sure that they are comfortable, especially if you're in the UK with our ridiculously cold houses. Not the best insulated most British houses. Likewise, lots of different pillows. So I have been using this pillow with my wife in videos, you've noticed. So it's just a normal pillow, and that's quite comfortable for her. But lots of different sizes of pillows is quite handy. So some people actually don't like their head bending too much like that when they're lying down. I know, I'm one of them. So, having different varieties of pillows of different thicknesses is very, very useful. I do have other bits and bobs. So you can play around with different things. So this one does have little spikes on it to dig into the skin to promote circulation. But something like this without these spiky bits on can be very, very useful. So you can put it here under someone's neck. That can be quite comfortable. And of course you can put them underneath people's knees. If they have any knee issues or back issues, it can be quite nice to put something under someone's knees. And again, pillows can be very handy for that as well. So yes, lots of different things to consider to make someone comfortable. You can buy all sorts of different wedges, all sorts of different shapes of cushions, depending on your needs and the person or the people who might be coming in. Okay, what else is there? Tissues, before I forget. Always good to have tissues on hand. Not just for runny noses and colds, that kind of thing, but quite often there will be big emotional releases quite often when you do healing work, and it's always nice to have tissues there to make sure you can catch some tears as emotions come up. So tissues are always a good thing. Water, I have a jug of water over there. Again, people can quite often get quite thirsty and want some water even in the middle of a treatment. So a jug of water and some glasses, very, very useful. And it's always good to have water at the end of a session as well. Even though we're not massaging the body with healing work or doing manipulations, that kind of thing, it's amazing how much working on the energy field can affect the muscles, the flow of blood, and different fluids in the body. And the body can start to detox and start to flush things out of the cells. So having water, very important to help start that process before they even leave your room. Very useful, that for sure. And then some other things that you might want. Heaters, of course. Quite important to have heaters again in the UK to make people comfortable. And again, just position them in a way that they're not interfering, that there's no cables people can trip over. A lot of common sense, really, isn't it? There's other things that people can put in the room. So just because a lot of people expect healers to have this sort of thing doesn't mean to say you have to have it yourself. So I do have harmonization devices. So this is a quantum fluctuation resonator, very expensive. And yeah, puts out quite an energy field. So you can also use these sorts of things underneath the table to create a nice field around the table as you work. Or sometimes you can put them below someone's feet or above the head if you want to enhance things, that kind of thing, if you like playing with crystals. But for me, it's more about creating a nice environment for healing to take place. That's just placed in my window where the energy line goes through this house. Crystals. Again, don't feel like you have to buy crystals. Don't feel like you have to buy harmonizing devices or have pictures of angels or whatever else that you tend to see in crystal shops. You don't need that sort of thing. Be yourself. So if you feel you don't need crystals and that the environment's really nice, it feels nice and welcoming and energizing, don't feel like you have to go out and buy crystals and that kind of thing. I personally don't really feel I need crystals and that kind of thing anymore. I'm much better at maintaining my own vibration, and especially in a room like this that receives a lot of light and generally has a nice vibration, you don't really need crystals. Yeah, a lot of people in crystal shops can tell you what each crystal can do. Amethyst is obviously quite a useful one because it's quite good at clearing lower vibrational energies, getting energies moving. Quite useful for that kind of thing. So amethyst is usually quite a nice one. But feel free to use whatever crystals you like. If introducing more of a love vibration might be nice, then obviously a rose quartz might be more to your liking. Sound. This is another big topic. So again, don't feel like you have to play music in the background. I know some healers like sounds of whales in the background, or certain pieces of new age music that have certain frequencies, maybe the solfeggio sounds in the music. Don't feel like you have to have that sort of thing in your room. And in fact, I would say it's best to ask at the start of a session whether that person would like music or not, because a bit like with lights and different objects in the room, people might not like that. People might not be more agitated actually with that music. It could well be that the music is promoting healing in someone, but it may be too much. Maybe they're not ready for it. So I know personally I prefer peace and quiet. With healings with me, it is just nice and quiet. You can use music, of course, to clear a room before you start. So, you can use singing bowls, that kind of thing, to clear a room. And of course, if you're using music and vibration in your sessions, then people will obviously expect that. Yes. What else is there to cover? So yes, clearing a room. So there are a lot of people out there that will have techniques for clearing a room, sensing into a room to make sure it's clear of entities, clear of any lower vibrational energies, that kind of thing. That's something, again, we can go into in the future if people are interested, but you can always ask someone who's a sensitive to come and look at your healing space or intended healing space. And, we can go into some of those things in the future videos. So looking into where an energy line might be going through your house, sensing into where someone may have died in the house, because where someone dies leaves quite an imprint of energy. Where someone may have sat for many, many years in the same chair, doing the same activity for a long time, can sometimes leave quite an imprint. So electronics, of course, if there's been a Wi-Fi router in the same place for a long time, that can leave quite an energetic imprint. So there's lots of ways that you can cleanse that and clear that. And in fact, you can actually use the healing techniques I've already taught you in the last few videos to actually clear energy that way. So even working on walls, objects, you can actually use those techniques, letting energy pass into that particular area, picking up the energy and moving it, throwing it, playing with it. All of those techniques can work. So if, say, there was a chair here and someone had sat there for a long time and they died in that chair and left quite an imprint there, you can literally go here, start clearing the energy, playing with it, pick it up, throw it away, that kind of thing. Usually energy does dissipate with time anyway. So one of the more basic things to say is, how does the room feel to you? Does it feel welcoming to you? So with all of the different things I've said, and when all that's sort of done, how does it feel to you? Do you feel like it's a welcoming space? Do you feel like it's a space, when you walk into it, you feel, a sense of relief, a sense that something can change, something can happen, something magical about the room? How does it feel to you? So there's a lot of things that you can do to make things more comfortable for other people. But of course, people are all very different, and there's always going to be something that they might not like. So always do your best, but at least get it so that the room feels welcoming to you, so that the room feels like there's potential for change and magical things to happen with healing. And if you feel like that, then it's probably in a good state to allow healing to happen. One last thing I'll say is, the entrance to the room as well. So if you are on the first floor or higher floors, like this room is here, be aware of who you might be bringing to your healing table. Is it a bit difficult for them to walk up the staircase? Is it a bit narrow? Where are they going to put their shoes and their coat? How welcoming does the front of your house feel? Does it feel welcoming? Does it look welcoming? And is it practical? So a few other things to bear in mind there if the room isn't that close to the front door, to help people feel welcome. Okay, I think that's pretty much what I was going to say today. There's a lot more things you can talk about setting up a healing room. A lot of it is common sense. You can probably get a lot of benefit by reading and applying Feng Shui. Feng Shui, I know some people call it. But using Feng Shui books can be very useful, because a lot of Feng Shui, in my opinion, is just common sense. A lot of it is thinking about light and room and space and how the energy moves. Okay, hope that's useful for you, and if there's any comments, please leave them down below, or of course you can email me, like people seem to prefer. And like and subscribe if you like to support this channel, and I will see you in the next video.